watching the Star Wars Reporter podcast. May the Force be with you.
And welcome to the Star Wars Reporter podcast, the official podcast of the starwarsreporter.com. Is this some kind of news site? Okay, never mind. Today, we're going to be discussing Andor, and there's a couple of people it says here on my clipboard, I got to introduce. Okay, okay, I got this. Okay, so apparently there's a couple of people on this. First, we'll introduce Cooper Todd.
Hello, everyone. Sorry. I must say, I didn't expect the special guest star showing up, and I just must say, whoever's doing the voice is nailing it.
Sometimes you get lucky in a crappy podcast like this.
How do we afford the visual effects for this?
Well, it's a very hairy arm that helps with that. So, and we also have a special guest today. For some reason, he decided to come here. The Mandalorian. Cool name, though.
Yeah, very cool name.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It just kind of came to me, so.
Yes, they're very lucky to have at least one person watching them. It's very good. And so...
Where's Wookiee Steve?
Apparently he ate a little too much spicy food, but he'll be right back. He told me to sit in so he could sit in. Okay. What? Okay. All right. I was told to clean up my jokes. But before we get started, and welcome to episode 98 of the Star Wars Reporter podcast. I'm Wookiee Steve, and you've met the other two people that for some reason agreed to do this. So we have a lot to talk about with Andor. It's a whole bunch of episodes. Last week we did the Tales of the Jedi. Now we got to do catch up. So episodes 8 to 11. Only one more episode left.
That's a lot of ground to cover in one episode.
That is true, but before the podcast started, we were kind of talking about how a lot of the episodes kind of have the same thing going on with it. So it's going to be kind of easy when, Yeah,
I just want to say, like you brought up a really interesting point, Steve. The fact that, they haven't moved a lot in the last 4 episodes. Locations, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And really not a lot has happened, but so much has happened. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's why I mentioned, I commented last time we did a podcast on the series, the fact that there's not a lot of pew, not a lot of action, but a lot of character development, and quite frankly, it's very intense.
Yeah, the world building. They're world building. They're bringing in these in my opinion, some of the best characters we've seen in the Star Wars universe in many years. It's been interesting to see. And it's like Kino, I think is he's one of those great Star Wars characters that I hope we see more of them. They really left kind of what happened with him really kind of open-ended. So not being able to swim is kind of it's kind of a bummer when you're escaping a water prison.
Sorry, you're telling me not being able to swim and trying to escape from a prison that's surrounded by water is an issue?
He didn't think it through,
Well, one way out.
Yeah.
One way. Yeah, it seems like you have to know how to swim and to scale the side of a mountain. So, which we saw in episode 11 with Andor and one of his escape buddies there, which is the same actor. I didn't get this ready in time, but the same actor that we see in Rogue One. I guess he plays one of the soldiers, but I don't know if he's the same guy or not.
Really?
Interesting.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Well, I thought for one, I couldn't believe they had got Andy Serkis to be in another Star Wars thing, and just how strong his character was, as Matt was mentioning earlier. Like, just like that whole entire prison scene, I think was off the charts intense. You know, consider again, still not what they kept building the same prop. They're building something in this prison, which I have no idea what they're building. I want to know, but I have no idea. But just how intense all that was. The little, who knew that little red lights on the floor could be so intense, right? Like,
that's very true.
Like, they did such a good job of pulling that off and just make it like the whole walking thing that's counting down, and they just step off and it turns like you're like, whoa, it's so close. Like, my wife watched one episode and it was one of the prison scenes, and she thought, oh, this is really like intense. I said, I know, and she'd know anybody.
The practical sets is something they've been doing on this show that you haven't seen in a lot of the other Star Wars shows. So, just red LED lights, will give you that kind of like that sense of terror, like don't step on the floor.
Well executed, well developed, well just even thought out sort of thing. Even like I thought they did a really good job. Even the first time they came into prison, this is before episode 5 or whatever it was when he went to prison. Maybe sorry 7. But the simple fact that they did a really good job, like Matt Merritt mentioned earlier, world building. They're showing this prison. You could see that they're understaffed. You clearly could see that they had their system to keep people in line, but you could see how it was on their viewpoint from the Empire sort of stuff, the people who work in the prison, that it was really a high risk situation sort of thing, because there's so many things that could go wrong. And again, they think they have all the power, not thinking they're overconfident, and then therefore causes their downfall too, right?
Right. And we kind of get a sense of that whole ominous feel when they first get there to the prison, and the one of the guards is explaining to them that whole typical scene of when the inmates come in and they get told the rules and stuff, and we get to find out why there isn't a lot of them, or they don't have weapons when they have this shocking system, where they just buzz them and they're not wearing shoes, so it kind of knocks them out and electrocutes them. But it's really interesting. We've talked about this a lot before, about how disorganized that the Empire seems at this point, and it goes back to maybe what Andor's saying. They're so arrogant, they're so sure of themselves that they're sloppy, and so they think that their security system is so good that they have these really terrible guards. These guys are idiots. Most of them are just dumb.
Yeah.
And even when the head guard here is giving them the speech, the guy over his shoulder, he's got this like deer in the headlights look, like he's afraid. He's not so sure of himself. The guard talking is like, we're so good, and go, try it, and this is what will happen. And even when they're bringing Andor in, how they're talking to each other, it's like very sloppy, and it's like high schoolish. They're not intelligent guys.
Well, again, that's where it was really neat. Was you see Andor just observing, looking around everything, trying to find flaws, trying to find a way out, trying to plan, the whole time he's working, all he's doing is he's watching. He sees that they don't have enough manpower. They see that they're not technically sound. They can see that there's a possible way of what destroys electricity. Well, water can shut things down, right? So they're surrounded by water. So it was. I really liked how they built that up. And again, I'm surprised, being in one location doing the same thing over and over and over again, how they can make it visually appealing. They didn't have to do any fancy camera moves or fancy special effects. What it was, and they weren't even saying much dialogue, right? But you feel the tension. They're racing because if you're not the first group, you're the last place group, you get shocked, right? So this little stuff like this was all like, it was just the shot, the very repetitive sort of thing, but at the same time, it's building up tension. And I just applaud the people, filmmakers, who put this together to give it that sense of dread and tension. Word of the day, tension.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. For me, the prison, it was very reminiscent of the John Woo film Face Off, where they got the magnet boots.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
yes.
For me, that and even the escape, when he escapes in that film, he's got to climb up. It's all about climbing up, and then he's actually in the water too. He's on a outpost out in the middle of the water. So it's like for me, it felt eerily similar. I enjoyed it very much in my own way, and it's on my second watch when I watched it is when I kind of got that thought where I was like, this seems familiar to me. But yeah, it was with regards to the building tension building. It just for me it was just the actors, and it was that back and forth between Andor and what's his name?
You're talking like Andy Serkis, Kino?
Andy Serkis, yeah, Kino. Thank you.
I don't know any of the names except for Andor.
I do. It's just of course when we're live, it slips my mind. Just the back and forth between them, where they're kind of like like in any kind of like jailhouse setting too. Like that guy would be like, the guy that's kind of running it. You would kind of you would have issues with all of the inmates. Yeah, he's the cell boss, right? So to have that kind of those issues with each other is very cool. And then for him to kind of be the one to lead them out too, just a really powerful scene. It was when he's doing that speech, I got goosebumps, right? Where Andor's like prompting him to, be inspiring, man. Like you can do it, right? And then he really kind of lets it go, and then the music picks up and the escape happens.
Yeah,
it's great.
He really had a nice arc to his character, because when you first see him, he's like he's the cell boss. He's like, program, and this is what your job is, and he's got that thing. And then when he starts realizing that, because he has X amount of days to get out, right? So he's just trying to make it there, as everyone is. And then when realities start coming in, like maybe they're not really going to get out. And then I just remember the scene, like this, you can see it in his face. He starts realizing that it's not going to go good. And him and Andor, then after the old man dies, have this argument, and you can see the fear, right? And even when he goes up and they're I'm kind of calling it the warden's office. It's like the main area that secures the whole place. And Andor is trying to get him to give this speech, and he's very, very nervous. And then finally kicks in, right? And then he has that whole the one way out. Right? He builds it up, and Andy's so good at that, right? Like Gollum, all that craziness he did there. And when you hear him talk in interviews, he's so light and soft spoken, but he could play. I think, was it King Kong or something? He was
King Kong.
King Kong. He was also Planet of the Apes too. Yeah.
But
Caesar
he
Planet of the Apes.
Plays in one of the Marvel shows or something, and he's like
he was,
mercenary, and he's like badass.
He was his name is he becomes
Claw.
Claw. Thank you very much, Claw.
Yeah. So I think it's so funny, right? Because he's such a nice guy, and then you see him playing some of these mean characters. So I just love the guy.
Well, the whole thing with him, like this is stuff with the old guy. I thought this, such a good job of showing the old guy struggling. Obviously, there's health concerns with Mr. Old Guy, right? And then he has a stroke, right? And then they bring the medical team in. Oh, thank you, Steve. Look at these photos.
For some reason, it's like you're practicing.
Great. Yeah.
And that whole scene when the doctor comes in, because there's all that talking about the second floor is wiped out. With the community, I thought they did a good job of setting up the communication, how they sign language, different floors, right? How they talk. Right. And he's saying, well, that was like a week ago. It takes a week for that, that message to come through. We don't know if it's real. And the whole thing, the doc says it's real, and no one's getting out of here. And it's like whoa. And then just how you remember how Andor is going to Andy Serkis, his character saying, how many guards? He wouldn't answer. Then all of a sudden, there's 11 guards, 12 on Sundays, whatever he said, right? Yeah. So, it's like, whoa, it just built up so nicely. Again, that comes with amazing writing, amazing performances. Like I mentioned this before, Steve, when we did the last podcast, the fact that this is a lesson in storytelling. Like, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And I just want to do a shout out. We're talking about the speech, the microphone he's speaking into. It's exactly like the one, the Han Solo in the prison in A New Hope. When he blasts it, exactly.
Important conversation anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And even episode the latest episode, the girl, I can't remember Andor's girl friend from his home planet, right? She's in the prison. They had the cameras. You remember that prison break where Chewbacca's shooting these cameras? It had that camera. It's like it's like a 6-box kind of camera sort of thing. I don't think you have it, but
I have this console here. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so if you look at that again, if you look at it, you'll see that it's the same kind of cameras that Chewie's blasting in that prison breakout scene in A New Hope.
Oh,
so if you check out it again,
it's funny you mentioned that, because when the show was first being made and developed, Tony Gilroy and the woman that runs like Disney Star Wars, they said that it was going to be kind of a standalone series where they weren't going to play do a lot of homage, and they were going to do a lot of Easter eggs. But I feel like this show has like more satisfying Easter eggs than any other show I've seen. You know, like you should do one scene in his in Lutheran's shop, and it's like it's just an Easter egg heaven. It's like a whole season worth of Easter eggs, right? So you know,
I think you pause the screen and you just try to figure it out.
Yeah, see everything. Yeah, so I've been very pleased with it, and I don't know if they did that as kind of like a fake red herring to like throw you off, but it's like it seems like there's been a lot more nice little nuggets of
I don't think Kathleen Kennedy knew what she was talking about, maybe, and that Tony Gilroy was like, I have lots of Easter eggs. What are you talking about? You gotta come down to the set one time.
One thing we talked about before, Matt, it's the first time joining, but me and Steven, the group have talked about many times how The Mandalorian, all these different shows do a really good job to visually tell you we're in the Star Wars universe. And so having the microphone the same and having that camera the same and having the console the same, it just lets, even though it's not Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, or Chewbacca, or Darth Vader, you know it's in the Star Wars universe because it has the same technology. That's what I love about it. It gives you that feel. And you know, it's like Steve said before, it's that Leonardo DiCaprio meme, right? I recognize the camera, right? So it's those little things, fun things that us Star Wars fans can watch and just go,
you know what I thought?
Sense of comfort.
You know what I liked about the recent episode, Daughters of Ferric, that I thought really kind of elevated the show. So I feel like the Star Wars universe it's very much doing kind of what the Marvel universe is doing. And Todd, we've talked about this before, where each show has kind of different tone. You know, like it's where, you know, where Boba Fett was, you know, is kind of like a Western genre, where it's like this one's very much spy oriented. And I feel like in this last episode, Daughters of Ferric, with Lutheran's ship, we had our first kind of James Bond moment. You guys, like when he, like that was an incredibly cool scene where he decimates this ship, you know, like and then he just takes off, you know, like it was.
How cool was that scene?
I know.
That scene was so good. I couldn't.
It was a James Bond car, you know, like he.
he's got all the gadgets on his car for sure.
And as Steve knows, I love TIE fighters, and I love when I see inside a cockpit of a TIE fighter with TIE fighter pilots. I like, wow, it's so good. And then just what Lutheran's ship was doing was amazing. Takes out the tractor beam, takes out the
the little lightsabers that he's got on the side. And he starts spinning.
I was going to say that's the John Favreau Iron Man move. You know, it's good.
Absolutely. Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Last resort, right?
Do you want to hear my theory of what I think that they're building?
I would love, because I have no idea.
So it initially starts for me is when Andor is sentenced to his 6 years at the such and such facility. And he's like, where, what? Because he's been in prison before. He probably knows different places, like maybe, you know, anyone that's been in the system would know. So it's this unknown place. So they go to this, hang on a second, I think I got it. This unknown prison facility in the water. And they're making their little devices and stuff, right? Like you see them here doing this same thing over and over and over again. And how they're killing purposefully floors, you know, and they start realizing, I don't think anyone gets out of here because they're covering their tracks because they're building the Death Star, the first one. So it's like that whole thing, like, you know, in movies or like the bad guy builds the death ray and the scientists are like, yay, we finished. And they're celebrating. And then he kills the scientists to cover their tracks. And I'm wondering if that was like a, the whole Nazi kind of thing too, where they just, kill all the witnesses and then they have their death machine, which is, like the whole cliche of what the Empire is, but that's what I think.
I think you're right, because if you look at it, they're kind of building like a hexagon kind of shape sort of thing, right? So if you're going to try to build a sphere, you're not using blocks, you're probably using a hexagon type shape.
And you keep it a secret because no one knew about it until it showed up.
And it looks like it's the exoskeleton of a sphere.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like.
Well, I had that thought with you guys were talking about the old man that died in no one way or nobody's listening. The old man that died.
Yeah.
I thought it was like I got a vibe that he was like kind of like poisoned because he was coming up on his release date. So they're like, we're not gonna let him out, so we're just gonna make it look natural.
Right.
And he has a stroke, right? So, I mean, they could have been trying to keep it under wraps by doing like these, those kind of stroke deaths kind of things. So, I don't know. That was kind of my thought too, because they did mention in the episode that he had a short time left.
Yeah, because Andy Serkis, I don't think his character was going to release anytime soon, was he? I remember he was going to release was it 4 months or something like that, or 40 days, or
it was probably long, but it was still like short, and he was like, don't mess this up, and I'm getting out on these days, and
I can see where your theory came from, Matt, for sure, because well, he's a waste, he's not performing. Why are we wasting time and energy and food on him? So let's just or the paste, whatever they're eating, just get rid of it.
It wouldn't be hard to sneak something into his paste, so.
Yeah. I find, and you know what? I'm going to do my little wrench a little early. This is the only thing I'm finding with the scenes in the prison. It looks good, and you know what's kind of going on. There's a little bit of that kind of escape from Alcatraz thing going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, when the old man is struggling and he gets sick and then he ends up dying, I kind of felt, didn't feel much about it, because I don't think that they delve too much into that relationship building, because when Andor first gets there, and he gets into his little cell and he's like, and then the next scene, it says 30 days later, right? So then they're just kind of all casual with each other. And I know they don't have time to go through that whole like, oh, where are you in for? Where are you from? All this kind of stuff. But there was no, like, when they were doing all that kind of stuff, that was the opportunity for the writers to have them then talking instead of saying, okay, left, okay, this, okay, that. Because it was like every episode of them doing that was just them focused, okay, turn this, okay, move this. They could have been talking like, this is crap, and I miss my wife and kids, and I don't know if I can do this because of my arthritis, and you know what I mean? It was a good opportunity for them to establish that. So when the old guy died, and Andy felt bad, and you know what I mean, you got to know a couple of the people that ended up, getting shot in the breakout and stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, I like that dude.
Well, me and Todd talked about it a few weeks ago, and me and Steve, me and you talked about this just before we started, that one of the things I like about the show is they're introducing kind of like these bad batch of guys that he's like these new crews that he's in. And then in the Eye, I thought they developed that group for the heist really, really well. So when they started dying off in that episode, you're shocked. You're like, whoa. And I agree. Like in One Way Out, when guys started getting blasted, I was just like, oh, that guy is just kind of like didn't really mean much.
Because they never really talked to each other.
They didn't build those characters as much as they did as the heist crew. The
heist.
So here's a situation to me. All the characters, the sub characters, they're all red shirt Star Trek officers. What they are.
Yeah.
They when they die, you're not going, oh no, Jimmy Joe or Agent Number 4. No one cares. Like, they didn't build him up enough, and there was no time to build up. And there's no need. The part of the story was, we're not getting out of here. Right, and that's how they brought the doctor in, and the doctor had that information to confirm the speculation that, because he's trying to hold the ship together, with the program, and of course Andor's going, no, we have to go now. He's trying to keep everything from going back. He doesn't want to get shocked. He doesn't want anybody else to die. And then of course the doctor comes along, confirms that, okay, we have an issue, right? We're never getting out of here. So again, I wasn't too concerned. You have a really valid. would it be awesome if we cared and we all cried when the old man died? Sure, but he's just a red shirt.
No,
Well,
no, for
even
sure.
still, like I think for like the storytelling purposes, if you build these characters up a little bit more, the escape means a lot more. There's more at stake because you're more invested in these characters. Like I was really shocked in the eye when like 3 or 4 of those characters were just kind of like killed off. Like I thought it was great TV. You know, like
Yes.
I'm like because I actually they had time to like really like these characters. They all had their individual kind of thing going on. And then it's like, boom, they're dead. And I'm like, is that what kind of show this is going to be? This is great, you know. So
we've talked about this lots, Matt. Me and Steve and Adam and Jen. The fact that consequences, right? Like having realistic consequences, right? If you're going to break out, not everybody's going to make it out. And what I love that they're doing here is, yes, we introduced Jimmy Joe, but you know what? Jimmy Joe's dead now, right? You know, they're, even the latest episode, they climb the cliff. They're there and they're talking like. They're on he went back to the holiday planet and he's like, how many of us made it out? Right? They have no idea. Maybe they're the only 2 survivors. Like, you know, and that was like impact. Like all those people tried going, maybe they're the only 2 that made it out. That's a huge impact.
But those 2 with Andor and the other guy, which I can't think of his name at the end, there was even more development between the 2 of them in the scenes in that last episode than development of relationships in the entire prison episodes, because they were kind of like they were kind of funny together, like not meaning to, but it was like they were fumbling around trying to figure out what to do and get off the planet, and the guy's like they're trying to run to that ship and Andor doesn't want to, he wants to be safe, and he was right because they get caught. But and they had more of that even at the end when they were on the pleasure beach saying their goodbyes. It was even more like that, you know, like when Andor finds out that Marva dies and all this kind of stuff. But you know, with the prison scenes that they had, I just thought that the only thing I'm saying is that when they were working on the Death Star parts, is what I'm guessing, that it was their opportunity to have them talking. And then of course in the cells, right, when they, you know, talk across from each other above and stuff. And they did that a little bit, but it was mostly Andor and Kino. I always want to call him Andy, but it's Kino. But I just thought it was just kind of wasted. It was kind of like, what do you call that? Like
missed opportunity.
Just like open. It was just quietness, you know.
But I don't think we've seen the end of Kino. And Melshi is the name of the guy that he escaped with.
Oh, okay. Cool.
If he's in Rogue One, like you said earlier, I don't think it's the last we're going to see of him either. So, I mean, there's 2 characters that they've also introduced that I don't think we're going to see the end of in the finale next week and then season 2.
I didn't know there was a season 2, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already it's been done.
Greenlit.
So my other favorite character, Cyril. I made a note that Todd was right. So in episode that Narcan 5, Cyril and his job, and the Empire comes to see him, pulls him in to talk to Mira, the commander of the picture.
Yes.
And she's kind of questioning him. And I wrote down, I'm like, Todd was right, because you were saying at some point, and it's because he's sending in these kind of like requests for, you know, information, blah blah blah, and she has to finally come see him. And he's so awkward. So do you know what I figured out? Whenever he changes his clothes, like in his security uniform before, it's the collar. Yeah. And he's trying to make himself look like them. Like exactly. The officers.
The mother and him had a conversation when he's eating his fruity pebbles.
Yeah.
when they're talking about the collar and how he makes the collar big, because she accused him, you're trying to be them, like you're trying to. Yeah, that's exactly what he's trying to do. And I love like that episode when he confronted her outside the building. Like, to me, there was a lot of sexual tension there, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. There was
tons. Like he was like, and she like, I think he's infatuated with her, and she was, and I think she was liking it.
Yeah, it's really weird because she is her character is not as together as she's trying to make everyone else think. She is like the one episode where she was taking some pill and a drink.
Yeah.
I guess it was to keep going. She seems not like in some of the meetings with all the other officers, and they like counter what she's saying. She seems like thrown off a little bit, especially in that last episode where the redheaded mustache officer kind of gets over her in this meeting, and she's thrown right off and stuff like this.
You can see it. Like, again, she doesn't say anything. It's all the eyes. Like, the performances are so, like Matt mentioned earlier, performances are so, like, it's just the eyes. Like, she's like, really big eyes. Like, she's taken aback. She's aghast. She's, and that's what I'm saying. That whole interaction with her and Searle in front of the building, like, she's just always like, she wanted to say something, but she didn't say it, right? It's like, it was, I'm really impressed with all the characters.
I think they're the same. I think they're the same. That weird, awkward passion. Yeah. But she's worked her way up successessily, and he's living with his mom eating cereal. You know what I mean?
And his mom's not very nice either.
No,
his mom's not very supportive.
It's so I love all those scenes with Cyril and his mom. I'm still to this day think that he's going to be the hero that will emerge at some point. He's going to see the error of his ways, or he's going to be like what Todd says. He's going to be a complete asshole and get killed.
I don't.
Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say that. Me and Steven tell him this whole Cyril thing. He thinks one episode when he went home to his mom was showing a comparison of him to Luke Skywalker's storyline.
I don't see that, but I see him as being like a persistent kind of guy. So he's going to do what I think he's going to come face to face with Andor eventually. And, I think Andor will probably shoot him, but like he's just persistent. I think he's going to work his way back into the investigation somehow. We talked about it earlier, but like the ISB, and we talked about kind of like being the Empire being so spread so thin that, some of their personnel had like kind of fell through the cracks. They're not hiring, the best people. And you get that in the ISB too, where it's like there are a couple of really bright minds, but for the most part, they're just a bunch of idiots, kind of just like, trying to rule the galaxy.
They're yes men.
The vibe I'm getting anyway.
Yeah, they're yes men, and they're always, I want a better paycheck. I want a better location. I want out of this dump. They don't care about the cause. It's all about themselves. Power. They want power, right?
Yeah. You know who's the performance, the top performance for me and the Daughters of Ferric, other than Stellan Skarsgård, who I think is absolutely amazing in the show. But the bridge officer that is stopping him, that guy is such a jerk, and he doesn't have a ton of lines, but he plays it perfectly. Just
which one? Sorry,
the bridge officer that the tractor beam, the boarding party. We could use the practice. He doesn't have a lot of lines, but like, man, he was
what a dick, eh? We need to, we're gonna inconvenience guy because we need to practice. Like, what a jerk! He deserved everything happened to him.
And then the subtle facial tics after his ship gets destroyed is just like, it's just like, wow, like it's. Very small performance, but really, really powerful stuff, man. Like,
first thing I thought of when Luthen did that to the ship and he gets away, and that shows the commanders. In my head, I heard, "Please inform Darth Vader that we lost
Lord
the ship."
Vader.
And I'll be like going to my shuttle. That's all I was thinking.
Like, and how about the story arcs with Lutheran in the last 3 episodes too, right? Like, having that little secret meeting with their mole inside the ISB in the elevator shaft, and that guy wants out, and he's like, you can't. Like, he's a good guy. He's doing it for good, but he's not really. Even he says himself in this latest episode that he's not a good guy, like, for the greater good. Well, if you want to call it that, like, he knows he's doing stuff that's not good.
I think one of the reasons I like this show is because it like operates in a very morally gray area, and Todd, we've talked about this before. Like, remember in 97, I think it was, when they re-released A New Hope, and everybody was up in arms about Han shooting first. So they edited it so Greedo shoots Han, and then Han shoots Greedo. But you don't get that with Andor. Andor just shoots people. It's like they have no qualms about him being a murderer. So it's like there's this morally gray area that is just it's really, really cool. And Lutheran is the same way. Like, he's willing to sacrifice 50 guys just to keep his cover, right? Like, it's like,
right.
you know,
and this is what actually happens in the last episode, right? When him and Saw come to that agreement, they're going to let that Krieger, like, they're going to let him Fry do whatever they're going to do to him, and 30 men. Like, they're going to sacrifice all these people, and they make these deals. And that, to me, is that realistic cost of war, right?
Yeah.
That, you know, I'm sure every country has their spy units or military units that everyone pretends doesn't exist, where they do really ugly stuff, right? That needs to be done or needs to be done. And that just shows kind of, it's probably throughout history, this kind of stuff's been done. But speaking to Luthen at the end of that episode, where he tells that officer, like, you're not getting out, and all the things that he sacrificed, actually posted the transcript of his speech. It's really awesome. But Sam Witwer had tweeted this out. Guys, about that ending episode, all it proves is that Luthen played the dark side and ending, which is troubling.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because that whole scene in the hallway, I was like, it's very like Dark Lord of the Sith to me, you know, like, it's like he's in the shadows. It's like, it's lit really dark. And I'm like, oh, that's it's a nice kind of contrast to, like, he steps out of the shadows. It's like, whoa, you know, like,
when the officer comes off and he's just standing there, you know.
And look at the lighting too. Green, because green's a very uneasy, unsettling color. Like, it's kind of it's a sickly color, right? So again, motivated color for a scene, which we talked about episode 1. Remember the bar scene with all the lights coming up, sort of thing. Same kind of thing. Like, little things like that, just give it an uneasy kind of tension building kind of scenario. Like, that guy is sick inside the elevator, and you can see he's being torn apart inside, and the color really helps.
That poor guy, he's got his mustache, his brand new kid, he's a traitor. He is not making it through the show, man.
I wonder where his connection is, because listening to the elevator, one of the first things Luthen says to him is, "Oh, your daughter, it's so good that she's healthy, and I'm so happy for you." You start mentioning the kids, right? Because it's like, the subtle threat's already there, and it just seems weird. Like, it's so odd. It's almost like they knew each other before he was the officer and made it up. Was Luthen a former Imperial officer of some sort? You know what I mean? Because he called him by his first name too at one point. When he was talking to him, it was like Larry or something. I forget. Laurie. I forget, his name was Larry. Lonnie.
There,
you know what I mean? And he's like, it's not fair. Like, you know, the things like, this is when he was in the elevator still, about, you don't know what it's like from my side. So it's almost like, and I wonder if there's a connection between them two. Like, I still have that theory that Vel is the daughter of Luthen.
I thought she was Mothra's
cousin. So it could be Mothra's uncle, or Mothma's uncle, right? Because they're cousins. Because, I mean, he's much older than her.
I was just about to bring up that point. Because they said cousin, so I thought you were wrong. But maybe you're. I'm
probably wrong.
On to that theory.
I'm probably wrong. It just seemed like
wrong.
Their only interaction that we've seen on that planet there was, it seemed like father-daughter disapproval, bad relationship.
Well, we're talking about gray areas. Mothra's going to sell out her daughter. Like, she's going to make
to marry her off or something. That's so weird. It's the whole culture.
And well, also, I mean, one of the things I've liked about this show too is something's got to happen between now and A New Hope, where we get our Mon Mothra from A New Hope. You know, where she's very, disillusioned. She's kind of standoffish. She's monotone-y, kind of, going from like a family, a senator with a family, to rebel leader. Something very drastic is going to happen in that time area there, right?
Selling your daughter,
selling your daughter
off might be one thing to make you cold afterwards.
I know what's going to happen. You know how she's trying to hide the fact that she's been transferring money, and she wants to transfer more money because the Empire is getting into it. So her childhood friend, who's the big banker, he brings that shady banker guy that's good at, hiding big numbers, laundering money and stuff. and she rejects it because he's such a scumbag, blah, blah, blah. I think in the end, her banker friend is going to turn on her because it's kind of like the old story, like the World War II stories, right? It's like the Empire is going to catch up to him and he doesn't want to lose all that he has, right? The bank, all his stuff. And he's going to turn on her. And that's going to be the betrayal that you're not going to see coming is her childhood friend. Because from the first moment, he seemed weird.
But she doesn't trust him, though.
About it.
She thinks he's scum.
No, not that guy. Her friend.
Oh, the nice guy. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. The nice guy who's setting her up with the scummy guy.
The scummy guy that she rejects. But the other guy, I think, is going to turn. That's how she's going to get caught. Not to mention, I think her husband and daughter are going to also be on top of that because they're very, what's wrong with the Empire? Like all your charities and your crap and stuff. And the daughter, did you notice this scene? This weird elder cult going on that came out of nowhere.
Well, again, another reason why, like, I think she's going to say I lost my daughter anyway, so therefore maybe making this deal with this guy, him bring the son, like, like she's already lost, so maybe that's what she's thinking. That's what I thought anyway.
Yeah,
I thought it set up pretty nicely, introducing this whole cult thing, how she chose they call it the elders, so they called it
the elder or something.
Yeah. Elder something. So, yeah.
So, do you know who I was really excited to see? The sergeant.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I saw him, Steve, I was going like, "Oh, Steve's happy to see him."
So Cyril's mommy wakes him up to take a phone call.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, man. And then
So
he's
funny.
like, he's still back on a planet. I didn't know what happened to him, and so he steals from his mom to take a ship to Ferrix. And it's so funny. They're doing that whole not heist thing, but it's like everyone's after one guy. So it's like the Empire's going to Ferrix.
Yeah.
This group's going to Ferrix.
Yeah.
Cyril's going to Ferrix. It's like everyone's meeting up. And at some point, like Andor just found out that Marva's dead. Is he still going to go back to Ferrix? Well, he must.
Yeah,
he wouldn't send everyone to one place.
He is.
Because he's going to go.
Well, they still have Bix too. I think once he finds out that Bix is a prisoner and being tortured, he's going to go back and try and save her too.
She's not doing too well.
No, she's not. And exactly, which set up the trailers. Remember the trailers we saw all the troopers. Obviously, it's setting up for this. Like, because even what's her name, the blondie from the Empire, the ISP lady.
Mira, yeah.
She knows that Andor's mom's died, so therefore, she's preparing for him to come back. So it's all coming together for one.
It all come to a head on the planet there, and. Yeah.
I want to go back to the fact that I'm around the vacation planet. We saw a scout trooper. The scout trooper was awesome. See him in action, actually moving around, talking, interacting with them. Because you don't see a lot of scout troopers out there.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Not scout trooper. Sorry, shore trooper.
I had it when he went to when he was getting processed. Yes,
I was wondering why they're so tan, but they're tan because they blend in with the sand, which makes sense now.
Yeah, I didn't get why they're brown, it is right here when they were getting processed.
Yes.
And he kind of goes at this person behind him, like, "Don't look at me." And
they're dicks too, right? Again, it's the whole arrogance of the Empire. The stormtroopers they're flexing their weight. What are you going to do about it, right?
Yeah.
They're all like, I love that prison scene when they sentenced Andor, right? You remember that? Because they said it's a 4. Well, usually this is only 4 months, but 4 or 6 months.
It's a 6 months and now it's 6 years. Yeah.
Again, because again, the Empires. I think you're right, Steve. I will say you're right. I think the whole thing is they're doing this because they want to build the Death Star.
And they're so spread out thin. They need everyone they can get. So that's why they had they're like, okay, in the prison when they're building this stuff, it's like, we'll put minimum guards in there. They're all idiots, but we have this perfect fail-safe security. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Cheap labor.
Yeah. Undermanned, right? Like they're not spending any more than they have to because you have the guns, you have the electricity, you have the boots, you have the little, the tasers. You're fine. What are you gonna do, right?
So, and these aliens here,
Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about these guys. I watched this scene twice, and it didn't make sense to me both times.
I watched it. I was making my lunch when I was watching it, so I didn't guess. I watched it back again, and the conversation didn't make any sense. I thought.
So I get it. They don't like the Empire, but like you're still going to let these two guys take your ship?
Well, they went with them.
They're going to go with them. They were all going in the ship.
Yeah.
But I wrote down the line. He says the head alien guy says to them, he's, "Where ye be looking to run to?" And I was like, "Oh my!" I think I wrote what you just said. Pirates of the Caribbean. Anyone?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure. This is where the producers kind of flex hard, and the director has no say. Like it just makes no sense. You're building this whole exciting world that's really believable, and you throw in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, Matt, you haven't around, but we talk about this in every series where they bring in like Earth things, which just throw it off. Like that is again, they threw everything off having him talk like a pirate.
And he was rhyming when he was first talking. He rhymed.
I love the way I love the way they look. Love the way they look. I love the little webbing nets. Love that.
Yeah.
I just didn't like him talking like a pirate.
What do you mean, Todd?
The other guy didn't say anything. The other guy didn't say, you couldn't understand his language. I was happy with that. Like, you could have made him sound more boorish, or, you know what I'm saying? Just sound not like a pirate. It makes no sense why they would have a pirate accent.
Well, I guess it was some of the criticism that the prequels got when they were saying, like the Trade Federation, they sounded Asian, and this group sounded Jamaican, and this group sounded whatever. And I don't know if that was intentional of what he was doing. I just remember there was this guy that worked at my local EB Games or whatever it's called now, but back then it was EB Games, and he was this Asian guy. I mean, he was like 6'8", and the first prequel movie was coming out, and from the commercials, right, he was like, "Oh, I'm so excited to see that." And Trade Federation, man, they're like Asian. This is awesome. Like, what are you talking about? What? And I look at the commercial again. And I'm like, what are you talking? Well, I guess because of the accent that they gave him, and he was Asian, he thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, okay.
It's weird. I don't know why. There's many different. You can make up an accent. You know what I'm saying? Like, have a little grunt or like a little.
I mean, it's a Star Wars universe. You can do beeps or Wookiee growls, or you don't even have to. It doesn't even have to be English. You could just be a made-up language which they understand, right?
And exactly like Andor, one of them could have understood what the language was, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't know why it had to be a pirate. I'd rather him just speak normal North American English than a pirate.
I was thinking about this today too, with regards to the droids in B. It's interesting how some droids, can speak English, but others are just like BB-8 is just beeps, and R2-D2 is just beeps, right? So, you'd think that. You would think that all droids would be able to,
Why wouldn't you program all to speak? That's a really good point.
Yeah, because I actually really like what they've been doing lately with droids. Like it's kind of like an oppressed culture within the Star Wars universe, right? Like it's and then you got B that's like just like this sad. He's sad that he lost Marva. Like it's like. And there's just a really cute relationship that I thought there, and in the original trilogy, you had, R2 was a rock star, and then he was even more so in the prequel trilogies where he really got to flex, and then, they just kind of they've been developing the droids a lot more, even in Rogue One with the Imperial droid, it's a great character, right? So. Really humanizes him, I guess is the long point that I'm trying to make.
It seems to me that
Steve hates B. Hates him.
I do not hate. No, that's not true. In the first episode where we see him, I wasn't keen on the voice acting.
Yeah.
The droid itself, I mean, I love droids, but I wasn't keen on the voice acting of the kind of slight Max Headroom kind of thing they were doing with it. But going to your point on how the droids, I was just thinking about this too, that, some speak and some beep and whistle and everything else. And if you look at R2-D2, he's beeping, but he's got a lot of personality. And, you have a protocol droid because that's their their role is to speak.
Yeah.
So and I think that the binary is a language that probably a lot of technicians or people might know, right? Because you remember in the prequels, it was like a deleted scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan are arguing about R2D2, and Anakin does the binary beeps. It's like, no, R2 said blah 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 blah. He didn't say this, and that's what it means, because they were having an argument over R2D2 being an idiot or something, and I think that it's kind of that weird universe where I think we've talked about this in other podcasts. It's like the fashions, like wearing capes and stuff, right? Like people are trying to attribute too much to our world, and it's just kind of their evolution where it's like droids weren't this personable pet or like a dog that you pet. They were work things. They did stuff. So they didn't care that an astromech droid, which is what R2 was, could speak to them or not, or tell bedtime stories, because they were working, right?
Yeah.
Where you would have protocol droid that needed to talk, or you had, let's say, a droid like B5. Maybe he was programmed to speak English because he was more of a family friend, someone that they accepted that they talk to.
House servant sort of thing.
I get a feeling like he's like a cleaner droid. Like he's even charging like he's a vacuum. Like it's like he's got a.
Right. But he's so loyal, and he, to Marva,
like a dog.
So he was like this family thing, and it's like what R2D2 or C3PO and that became. But before that, I mean, like C3PO had his mind wiped. They were just work things that they were going to use until they became important characters or important members of the group. And I just think that, in the universe before recent times, they were just droids. Like they couldn't really think for themselves. I mean, even Obi-Wan says that to what's his name, Rex, or in the prequels. He said, well, if the droids could think for themselves, we'd all be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So because basically they're programmed to appear to be thinking, or C-3POs appearing to be, oh my God, I'm so scared of space and stuff like that. So I mean, they're getting to a point where now Lando's having sex with his robot. I think that's a little much, but I had no problem.
I mean, that's more closer to real life than you would think. Like they got real life, robot sex dolls now, right? So, it's not that far fetched.
So, where's this for research?
Not that I'm interested, just I think it's good to know how droids operate in the 22nd century. Yeah.
But even in Obi-Wan, like Leia's got a really great relationship with her droid, where she is, she wants to treat it like, more human, like and. So it's pretty interesting. I recently, because after Tales of the Jedi came out, I watched episode 1 and 1, 2, 3, and I had this funny thought where with Count Dooku, with all of the Tales of the Jedi, those amazing episodes they had with him, and then in Attack of the Clones, I was more convinced that he was playing both sides, the double agent. And then I remembered that he killed Yaddle, and I was like, "Oh yeah, never mind." But I was like, everything except for that, I was like, it actually all kind of works. That he's he's playing both sides, like he's like a like a sleeper spy, But then it's like, well, no, he actually killed this character. I'm like, I forgot about that.
Him and Anakin are weirdly had the same fall from the Emperor, like from Palpatine. They were similarly tricked, right? But Dooku should have known way better because he was more wise and more seasoned. But I think he was even, maybe less patient and more angry than Anakin at that time. You know what I mean? Like, and again, it all comes down to, we had this talk doing the Tales. It's the Jedi, man. They really
Jedi failed.
Things go.
The thing, the episodes they showed with Qui-Gon, and then if you go back to Attack of the Clones, the conversation he's having when Obi-Wan is captured and he's in that floating prison thing, it all kind of makes sense what he's saying. You're like, whoa, like he's really Count Dooku's actually onto something. And then you realize that, like, he killed a bunch of Jedi, and you're like, actually, forgot about that part.
Yeah, the ends don't just.
Yeah.
Was it the means doesn't justify the ends or something, or vice versa?
Yeah.
How do you say
Hey,
that?
well,
Like, yeah,
Anakin was trying to bring peace to the galaxy. Come on, right?
Like,
He was
turning
he was
everyone to a bunch of pieces. Yes,
Yeah.
including
one steer the ship. He was trying to steer the ship. I don't know why he got such a bad rap.
It's true. I know it. It's just it's that whole classic story of it's good writing when you can go, you know what, that villain makes a lot of sense, and then you have to snap, like you were just saying, you have to snap back, go, oh yeah, but he did all these really terrible things.
Yeah.
There was a different way to do this.
So this is what makes Andor so interesting. Getting back to Andor, the fact that we're talking about the Tales of the Jedi, we're talking about the prequels, we're talking about who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. Who are the good guys in this show?
Yeah, it's
well,
all
I mean,
dirty.
they throw these little tidbits in that remind you that the Empire is bad. Like they just killed the pilot just to set up a trap, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're gonna leave him floating in space. It's like, well, you guys took him prisoner first, so you're gonna kill him, put him back in the ship, and then have him float around in space. Like, it's like, that's a pretty evil thing to do, Like,
And the good guys, but then the good guys at the end are going to sacrifice Krieger and 30 people.
Yes, but they're attacking a compound, so it's like they're going to go out with their boots on. They're going to be attacking, a frontal compound where it's like they might take a few guys out.
They're going to die no matter what.
Yes, like they are definitely going to their death.
They're going to a trap, and they know it's a trap, and they're not letting the people know you're going to a trap.
It's like this scene here when unstable, like you can see where Saw's getting more unstable here, right? Because he's got that extreme vision, and then you have the Luthen wildly, like he's a trickster and all this kind of stuff, and this is probably what happens, right? Like generals make decisions that probably they know they're sending men to go die.
And I love that scene, how Luthen went there to see him so that he didn't have to make the choice, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that's why, like, well, you have to make the choice now, right? Which is like, well, so unfair. Like, he's now been absolved, like, well, you have to make the choice. You gotta let him know or you don't. Because, and he brought the reasons why. And it's like, wow. Like, and I thought that was an amazing scene how it came together. I love the whole thing, for the greater good. Well, if you want to call that, you can. It goes, well, maybe we'll call it war. It's like, ooh, it set up, Star Wars so well, right? So it was a very powerful scene that really set up the two characters really well. And again, like Matt said earlier, this whole galaxy is full of gray paint because, like, who's the bad guy here? Like, we don't like these are the good guys, but they're doing bad things for the greater good. Like, and Luthen's not too sure if it's good.
I mean, I think that's what's cool about this show is it shows how ugly war is, because it's like, it's not all, dashing smugglers and, space samurais. It's there's an ugly side to it too, right? So,
well, who wins in war, Matt? Like, who wins in war? No one wins. Like, like there's so much loss and casualty and suffering and pain on both sides. One might come out at the end being victorious at the end, but at a huge cost.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not, it just seems,
and they're showing that in a subtle way. So
in the most realistic way possible. This is the most realistic war setting that this and Rogue One, right? I think they're really setting it up as like most realistic kind of war depiction in the Star Wars universe.
I don't think, much like war, I don't think a lot of these characters are making it out of this series. Like it's and if they do, we kind of know what their fate is anyways, right? So
we know Andor doesn't end pleasantly.
Well, he ends up on the beach, doesn't he?
He ends up on the beach. He does.
On the beach, yeah.
Is he watching a sunset or something? I can't remember exactly. A sunset of some sort, right?
Sunset kept coming towards him. It was weird.
Yeah.
I think they're like looking for waves to surf or something.
I think so. Surfing. I think there's a big wave coming, wasn't there? Like,
they're trying to catch. They're going to catch some waves. I think. Like,
a beautiful girl.
Scarif, that planet, I loved it. It looked so nice. Like it didn't look like most of the water was really deep. It looked like a nice place to live if there wasn't a
it's
garrison
funny
and
because
Death Star there.
it's funny you say that because Afghanistan in the 70s was a vacation destination. So Scarif, I bet before the Empire moved in and took it over, was probably a vacation destination. Because there's a very beautiful moon, right? So
right,
or planet or whatever it was.
So
it was.
Here's kind of on topic, off topic thing. They did announce that they're going to be releasing the first couple of episodes on like ABC and FX, all these channels here, which are like Disney owned, which is on normal TV. So speculation from some is because Andor is the lowest viewed series that they've put out so far. They're basically there's no one apparently watching it, and so now they're pushing it out onto TV to try to pull people in. So the first 2 episodes, and then they're gonna pull it in. And my thinking on that is this: I can understand why it might be the lowest viewed for this reason. For hardcore Star Wars fans that want something different, you're like, oh, I want something different. You got these stories. And it's really good because it's filled with Easter eggs, or someone says something, you're like, oh, they're talking about that planet from this movie or that comic book, or they're talking about that person. You know what I mean? So it's like that meme with Leonardo DiCaprio. So Star Wars fans go like, oh, look, oh, yeah. But as let's say you're a very casual Star Wars fan, or maybe you're just like a sci-fi fan, or just want some kind of action stuff, and you tune in, you're going to be going, what the heck is this? Like nothing's going on. This is boring. Because it's not the same appreciation, right? And I'm not saying everything has to have pew pew and Millennium Falcons flying around, but I could understand why it's low, because the action-based Star Wars will pull in the people that couldn't care less what Star Wars is, but are tuning in because it's like the whole Mandalorian thing. All the Baby Yoda and the action in that has pulled in people that only buy Baby Yoda stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. They don't watch Star Wars. They don't care. They have a room filled with Baby Yoda stuffies. So, but with this, I think that they didn't take into consideration that they're trying to get other people, and what they're doing is getting hardcore fans to tune in to see what Luthen has in his shop. Or you know what I mean? Like what do you guys think of that?
Well, I hear what you're saying. I just think that, again, because no one knows the characters, I think that's the miss, right? If you watch the first 2 episodes, we talked about the first 2 episodes when we did the first 3 episodes, right? The reason why they launched 3 episodes, because 2 episodes I thought it was really slow.
Pretty slow. It's just a very slow burn.
Right, it was a very slow burn, and I think that was an issue for it, right? So with the third, we all said the same thing. The first episode, okay, it said something, but we didn't know any of the characters or talking about his sister. We didn't know they're doing flashback scenes, about when he's a little kid. It just was taking a long time to get going. Right. Nothing really happened the first episode. The second, except for executing the cop. Second episode was slow again, but by the third episode, it really picked up, right? And I remember at the end of the second episode, I was hooked. So I think what they're trying to do is get people to try it out for free, right? Hopefully they get that hook at the end of the second episode, and they go, okay, you know what? I want to jump on Disney Plus and try and watch the rest of the season, right? Because they're trying to reach the people who aren't buying it or don't have Disney Plus, or just to reach out. If you have Disney Plus already, I don't know why having it on TV isn't going to change your mind. You're still already paying for Disney Plus. You'd watch it anyway. They're trying to reach the people who don't have Disney Plus. I think is what they're trying to do.
Is what they're trying to do. But
well, if that's the case, why would they be putting Andor on TV and not something that's had a little bit more success on Disney?
Well, what I think they're trying to do is boost the ratings for Andor, because right now it's their least viewed series.
But again, if you have Disney Plus, you're probably not watching those networks anyway. most people are the television industry is dying. The the watching set things on set times is dying. It is. The people who are watching are the old people, and they're watching news most of the time.
Right.
So I was trying to say, okay, so it just makes if you're trying to get viewers to watch, and I think they're trying to bring because again, if you have Disney Plus, you're not going to watch it on Hulu. You're not going to watch it on ABC. You're not going to because it's going to have commercials in it. Why would you do that to yourself?
But
right?
they're not. But they're not after the people that already have it. They're after people
who don't have
it, and
because they
they're
think
using
it's
that
good.
one.
Yeah. The reviews are out there. People aren't stupid. They see reviews. A lot of people are talking about how this is one of the best storytelling Star Wars out there, right? There's a lot of reviews on that. So anybody's looking at reviews, but I don't want to pay them, blah, 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 to watch it. Here's a hint. Oh, I really like, I think they're trying to suck people in that way. Again,
are they only releasing the 2 episodes or the 3 episodes?
I think it's 2 only.
Because, I mean, that's not a bad idea because if people do like it, they're gonna be like, oh, well, now I want to see what happens, So I mean, I've gotten streaming services by just kind of watching something, and then it's like, okay, I want to watch a sequel now, and then it's like, Netflix doesn't have the sequel, so I'm like, oh, okay, I got to go to a different platform to get it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've fallen victim to it, so. It's not a bad marketing strategy.
That happened to me and my son. We started watching The Surrogate on Apple TV at my brother-in-law's house when we were there for vacation, and we came back. We had to get it because we wanted to watch the rest of the series. So
I can guarantee you though that when the Bad Batch comes out, when season 3 of The Mandalorian comes out, when Ahsoka comes out, there's not going to be any free episodes on ABC.
Yeah,
because this is the problem that they're having now. The slow burn thing, like I said, is really, really not a bad thing for hardcore Star Wars fans because we go through it. It's like our own little soap opera, right? It's kind of cool. It's a spy, blah, blah, blah. But I think maybe it's a lesson learned. And I know it's all set up. The whole season 1 is going to be set up. Maybe season 2, it's going to be pew pew and craziness and even more murders. I mean, pretty much what's going on is some nasty things going on. And we're going to see that in season 2. We might draw in those non-fans and even some of the fans that aren't watching it either. You know what I mean?
So I want to go to another reason why I think Andor's on, why Mandalorian season 2 hasn't happened, or season 3 won't happen, or Bad Batch won't happen, because it's the only series out there that's not attached to anything else.
Standalone.
Mm-hmm. Right? So you don't want to start showing Mandalorian season 3 because you don't know where the story's at. So you know what I'm saying?
It's funny. I just read an article today about the problematic beginning of the Mandalorian season 3 because unless you're a hardcore fan and have watched Book of Boba Fett, you were left off at the end of season 2 where Baby Yoda went off with Luke Skywalker, and it's season 3 is going to start where he's back with Mando. So like the people that aren't hardcore that didn't watch Boba Fett. Those 2 episodes, they're not going to know what happened, right? So it's there's just an interesting article how it's like like you just got to stay up to date on all your shows.
But there is enough in those shows though, in that show, to make non-fans and casual fans happy to get their pew pew and their at least reasonably known characters, or like like everyone probably knows what Baby Yoda is, or Grogu as his real name is, but I just think that and everything else that people said here about kind of unknown characters, standalone stuff, I think that's the problem, which I think is really weird, because then Star Wars fans have been bitching at Lucasfilm for something new and different since Disney took it and probably even before that. And they get new and different, and it's kind of like no one's really watching it, which is strange to me.
Well, I think the Star Wars fans are watching it. It's the
on
the fence who are watching Mandalorian for Baby Yoda, like for the child, for Grogu. Like they're the ones watching that for that reason, right? Like they watch Boba Fett as Boba Fett. You know what I'm saying? Like this doesn't have that draw, so the casual viewer might not come over and watch it. Maybe
that's what I mean.
In my opinion, too, this is one of the best Star Wars shows they've had. For anybody who's watching the podcast, I think this is one of the best shows they've done. just because of the stuff we've talked about. They're going kind of darker. They're operating in gray areas. It's we're not seeing a bunch of characters that we've seen hours and hours of already. It's all new. It's all fresh, right? So, and you add in the practical sets and the acting and the writing, and it's a great show.
Acting for sure.
Well, for 2 years, I've been asking and saying, Steve will back me up. I've been saying I want to see more behind the scenes of the Empire, right? Yeah. And this series has given us the best look of what's going on behind those curtains, which we had never seen before. And I'm really enjoying that. We're seeing so much of it, and not just one character. It's a whole bunch of different characters, right? So,
yeah. What is the ISB exactly? Is it an intelligence department? Is it just kind of like a lower tier of the Empire? Like
they do everything from the basic functions of the different cities. Like it's not just security. They do the engineering.
Like the FBI, aren't they?
I thought they were more like the CIA.
CIA, maybe CIA, yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I just remember them talking about in one of the episodes, the reports on the engineering departments and stuff like that or something. Yeah. It's they seem to do all that stuff, but then also day-to-day functions of the city or something.
I think if things go wrong, they're investigating it. They investigate anything goes wrong, things get stolen, everything comes to them. They come with, I think that they come with the strategy to prevent it or to stop it, research it, how to stop it again, sort of thing, right?
Right.
And the thing that's what they're on. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, like the two guards that Andor kills in the first episode. I just feel like there was just they were garbage men with a badge, and they're just kind of pushing their weight around, and they got shot, So they were nobodies, it's
but those were the security guards with that other
they weren't the
security.
Empire.
They weren't the Empire. They were those what Cyril was part of. What were they called?
They'd be the Saanich police opposed to the RCMP, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. like another branch.
Yes, right. They're just a lower end branch where you had the Empire move in. Let's say, how the FBI. You watch all the movies, Die Hard. The FBI comes in and takes over the LAPD, right? They take away because they're a higher ranking thing. There's municipal kind of police. That's what that's what Cyril and his buddies were. This small little planet. They weren't governing over everything. And remember. The supervisor didn't want Cyril to make a report. Didn't want him to do anything. Write it up as just an accident. We don't want to involve the Empire. Oops, the Empire's involved now, right?
Yeah.
So Cyril kind of screwed everything up for everybody.
Everyone, hey,
good
leave
initiative,
Cyril
though.
alone. Good initiative. So this. That being said, about everything we were just talking about the ratings, me personally, I put Andor above Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I would too now.
Way above it, because I think everyone gave Obi-Wan just the greatest thing ever for 2 episodes, 2 of 6 episodes. At the very end is what made everyone squeal and nerd out because of the Anakin and Obi-Wan scene, where they sort of did a de-aging a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Steve. I rated Obi-Wan. It was my favorite series, but again, a lot has to do with watching Darth Vader walk down the alley, choking people out and throwing people around. That was awesome. But really, Obi-Wan had tons of issues, plotline issues. I thought.
Yeah.
Where this I agree with you, Steve. This has by far been the best series of Star Wars of anything, even better than Mandalorian. Even those less pew pew pew, I'm really loving what I'm seeing.
It's gonna get dirty. Season 2, it's gonna by dirty I mean it's gonna get where you're gonna see the horrors of war, or what has to happen, or it doesn't have to happen. I mean, none of it should happen, but of what happens. All the bad things that happen during war, right?
Yeah, well, exactly.
It's they're doing it more raw here.
Well, you got to think, starting off something what they're trying to do would be dirty work. It's not easy to start a uprising against a very, very powerful empire who doesn't have a Death Star built yet. But the Empire just they flex, they're bullies, they have power, they have numbers, they have all those sort of things, and and they control by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's just,
I agree.
everybody's afraid of him.
So next week is the big finale. It's probably going to be longer, and
Has to be longer than 40 minutes. Like, it has to be, you think.
And it's not even 40 minutes, right? When you skip past all the opening credits and the recaps,
Right.
It's way shorter. I think I wrote that down on one of them. It's like 45 minutes, but it came down to like 35, 36.
Yeah.
I'm like, how's that possible? But
I'm looking forward to it. The thing is, I have no idea what's happening next. Like, what did it set up for next episode? You know, we knew the prison break was going to happen. We knew that Cyril was going to try and capture Andor. We knew that the big heist was going to happen. What's going to happen next episode?
The big mayhem on Ferrix.
Well,
trying to get Andor.
All parties are heading towards Ferrix, so it's.
I guess. I'm sorry, how I missed. Yeah,
that's where we're going to see the whole riot scenes and I wonder what will change for people. Like, will someone major die?
Well, I remember it was a couple episodes ago. Isn't Vel and her partner, aren't they? They're trying to. They want to kill Andor for what he knows, right? Yeah. So it's like, are they on his side? Are they not on his side? Like, it's like her allegiance is going to change. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. You know, so
like the good guys and the bad guys want him dead.
Okay, so we should do a Deadpool. Who's not going to make it? One person who's not going to make it. Your prediction.
Of the characters now, you know what? Good possibility that Luthen doesn't make it. Ooh. That would be a long shot, but if they kind of want to be like Rogue One, you know, where everyone dies, but although during when they attacked the heist at the base for all the money, I told you, Todd, I said in the podcast, I thought everyone but Andor was going to die.
Yeah.
Because it would be like Rogue One, but I think only 3 of them died. So I just thought it was going to be, I thought the girls were going to be a suicide mission.
I thought your suggestion was crazy, Steve. But I'm going, he's probably the highest paid actor on the series.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why I don't think it's going to be him, because Stellan Skarsgård is the only real big name, you know, other than Andor, that signed on for the show. So it's like, I think they're gonna keep him around for season 2. Plus, he's got such a great character arc too, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's there's more I want to see from him. You know, like it's
What if he is the uncle of Mothma and the father of Vel, and he dies? Because there's got to be another ultimate reason for Mothma to take over as leader of the rebellion.
Steve.
Yeah, I think that's why my Deadpool is. I think Vel is gonna die, because I think it's the beginning of
Blondie.
Mon. Yeah, the beginning of Mon going.
Yeah.
Vel. Yeah, she was the leader of the heist team, but she's also the cousin of Mon.
Dang, I should have went second. That was the one I was gonna pick.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying earlier, there's got to be a reason for Mon getting so cold later in the timeline. You know, like so starting with the cousin. I mean, that's a pretty good guess.
Andor's buddy, he's going to die. Andor's buddy, you know, the big guy, the big husky guy who was helping the droid. I can't remember his name. He's going to die.
A bunch of people like that.
Yeah. I'm thinking a minor character that if he dies, no one's going to care about. So.
Well, you actually reminded me of Bix too, right? Like
Bix,
the kind of the love interest, right?
Yeah,
she's in a very tough situation too, right?
She's already been tortured. I don't think she's going to die now. Not this season.
Sacrificial. She kind of goes out in the blaze of glory, or pushes that button before Andor gets killed.
We said one, so
yeah.
You said Lutheran.
I'm long shot Luthen.
Okay, I'm saying husky buddy.
Okay.
Overall friend. Overall guy.
Husky friend.
That's my OnlyFans name, Todd. How do you know that?
I'm your biggest fan. Come on.
I knew that. Yeah. So yeah, it should be interesting, and then I guess it'll kind of predict or show us how season 2 is going to go.
Yeah, it'll set up season 2 for sure.
Yeah.
What do you guys think the odds are that we get a cameo from Kino in the final episode of the season? They left his arc so they left his arc so like ambiguous. It's like because like just the way the camera closes in on him, it's like, is he getting the courage to jump into the water, or is he like
I can see him come back second
like,
season. I can see him come back second season for something to try and get Andor sort of thing. I think that storyline's the prison thing kind of wrapped up. They separated from the other guy. I think that's wrapped up. I think that'll be a second season reveal. I'm sure if he's gonna come back. But who knows, right?
I think.
Who knows? And
You know,
anything's possible.
We forgot to mention too that today, November 17th, is Life Day.
Life Day.
Happy Life Day to everyone.
Why don't you explain what that means for some people who, like Matt, who was not born when Life Day was created for Steve?
Well, it's a big Wookiee thing on Kashyyyk, a celebration they have every year to celebrate renewal of life. I don't know. I couldn't understand any of the Wookiees on the Star Wars Holiday Special from '77, but if you go to starwarsreporter.com, we have an article with a link to the video there.
So you said it premiered this day in '77?
Yeah.
Was it November? So this day in '77 on TV, and I think it was pretty sure it was ABC. It wasn't ABC. And they had this 1 hour and a half special. I watched it. I was 5 years old. I thought it was the greatest thing on the earth. I watched it again 2 years ago. It's not.
It
does not age well at all.
It is wild. It's so hard to get through. It's like the challenge every year if you can get through and watch it. Ugh.
I remember.
It's like the Ewok movies. You know, I liked those when I was 5, but you know, as an adult, I'm like, take them out with the trash.
The Ewoks. We watched the Ewok stories not too long ago too. Didn't we, Stephen, talk about it?
Yeah, we did.
That's done better time than way better time than this. It's bad. I remember. I think if you Google search on YouTube, you'll find Harrison Ford being asked about the holiday special, and I think it's pretty. I think that he kind of avoids the answer. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it was Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. I have no idea what you're talking about.
People always ask him about that.
He won't acknowledge it even exists. It's so bad.
I guess it's true. Harrison Ford did do a lot of marijuana back then, or I don't know why you would.
Money.
They didn't know. No one knew.
Harrison Ford wasn't Harrison Ford in 1977.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
He was still part-time carpenter.
He was just, he didn't know how big. Because really, back then, like, were the numbers even coming out by then? Or how much money Star Wars was making? Right. It was a slow process. It wasn't as instantaneous as it is nowadays. Right. So
it's true. It's true. All right. So. Good predictions. I'm probably right and you're all wrong, but
that's on brand, Matt. Just so you know, that's on brand.
Oh, that's not true. But yeah, I look forward to it. It's going to be really interesting. And then after that, we have the Bad Batch is coming out shortly after that, right?
Yeah,
coming up soon.
Looking forward to that.
I am. Okay, well. For all you thousands of people that have been watching, thanks for tuning in.
And thanks for Matt for joining us today, Matt. Thank you very much.
That's great.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
I know you put up with Todd very well during this podcast, and it's better than most.
We got a
people.
good working relationship.
Yeah, Adam only joins us, and Jen refuses to come on if I'm on the show. So
it's true. I hope she's watching this. That's great. No, this has been great, and I hope we weren't too annoying.
Oh, and just in case if you've never seen the movie Face Off that Matt mentioned earlier, Face Off, John Woo film, John Travolta, Nicolas Cage, must watch movie. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite action movies.
Yeah, it's great.
So there you go. Face Off.
Right, guys. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.